Per usual, everything on this channel is for educational purposes only and is not intended as financial advice. Let's take a look at some altcoins today on this glorious post-FOMC Wednesday. Jay came out and was basically higher for longer. We're waiting on data. The next meeting isn't until March 20th, which is quite a ways away from here. There's a bit of a scare on one of the regional banks today, New York Community Bank Corp, on some surprise earnings data in a bad way. And that's kind of spooked the market, definitely. Jay didn't help things. So because we are in the risk conversation, it is a very angry day for most altcoins. Bitcoin here, as you know, you need an opinion on Bitcoin if you're trading alts. Bitcoin has been setting itself up for one of the first, in my opinion, tradable moves since before the ETFs launched. This to me is setting up as an inverted head and shoulders, not quite completed yet, but it is in the home stretch. You know, it is potentially 24 hours within a decision point here. So because this is a breakout trade, entering before the breakout is silly. And you do have to keep in mind, post-breakout, crypto moves super quick. So you do have to finesse an entry here. Unlike me, who opened pre-FOMC a little bit. I got a little greedy. Anyway, so I am a little long here. Your stop loss, realistically, you don't want to make a lower low. So anything below 42, you know, if you're holding anything, that's a problem. You really don't want to see that. You really don't want to see 41.5. Nevertheless, still not above the 8-hour cloud. Still not above 43.3. We didn't hold above that level. That is very clearly the neckline here. All this is important because you can't expect alts to do well when BTC is selling off hard, when Legacy is selling off hard, when there's potentially issues in the banking sector. And oh, by the way, they're closing the BTFP on March 11th. So it's a question of whether or not that's a canary in the coal mine for regional banks, or it's a one-off, or is there going to be contagion? You know, I think the doomers are going to be out in full force today talking about all that. Based on the technicals, though, this still looks like a pattern that's tradable. It looks like a pattern that could play out. So I think it's watchable. And if you're long alts, or if you're looking to long alts, I think you're hoping for this. The problem is, like I talked about yesterday, the daily Bitcoin chart is not on your side here. So this is very much a contra trend trade, I guess you could call it, relative to the daily cloud, because the daily cloud is telling you get out and stay out. Okay. And thus far it has been correct. We can hide the price. So you see what I'm talking about here. This is a bearish TK cross. If you've been long since 28, it's telling you to get out and telling you to wait until you see a bullish TK recross with price above cloud, or a move potentially through the cloud in a bearish direction, which confirms with a close of price inside of the cloud. So very much a non-trade zone here, kind of limbo situation. Again, this is important for alts because if Bitcoin does traverse from 42 to 37 or 42 to 35 or whatever, you know, there's going to be a wasteland in altcoin land. So keep that in mind. If you're turbo ultra long here on Solana because of some airdrop or some other thing that's going on. Anyway, so that's Bitcoin. Near term has a shot at pulling up. And if it doesn't, it's going to get probably really ugly. So I would keep that in mind when the alts, as we talk about them today. Dominance still looks fine to me, ranging, you know, it's hit its target. Trend-wise, it's bullish. It's potentially breaking this multi-year downtrend. And as I've said many times, is your altcoin getting an ETF? No. Okay, so anytime you're about to trade that altcoin, just keep that in mind. Most of the flows here from Wall Street are going to go to BTC. The best you can hope for is basically a doubling of stablecoins. You know, that's what you really want to see. You want to see stablecoin prints like we've never seen before, because that represents inflows directly into altcoins effectively. I mean, that's where most of it goes. If it's not Tether being used as money across the world, it's getting pumped directly into places like Binance. So all this is to say, look, it's still very favorable for Bitcoin. And by the way, you know, historically, alts do best after halving. Bitcoin dominance does worse after halving. And we're not there yet. We're several months out. Looking at the USD total 3, mini charts look like this on the USD pair. I've covered that a bunch. This week, I'm just going to focus on the BTC charts because it's kind of easy mode right now to just hold BTC relative to everything else because it's winning. There's a few charts here and there, depending on your risk tolerance, that you're just not going to touch, like myself. Solana doing okay. Link probably looking the best as far as a tradable setup against Bitcoin. We'll talk about that. But on the USD chart, everything is still early. It still looks like it's ready for bullish reversal. And it's just going to take, it could take another year for alts to do anything. At least several months after halving is when we've historically seen alts really pick up. So that is a ways away. And you're just eating an opportunity cost sitting in alts relative to Bitcoin. This is total 2 minus stables over BTC, or basically alt BTC as an index. And yes, we have broken a downtrend, a multi-month downtrend. We have broken that. However, we are still ranging sideways. We're not in the daily, this isn't the daily cloud, this is the 3-day cloud. And I would look for some sort of confirmation on a chart pattern here, very likely to be, again, an inverted head and shoulders type of pattern or a triple bottom, something. So we're not above the cloud yet. We're not above the horizontal yet. It just doesn't bode well for alts relative to BTC broadly. And again, halving's not until mid-April or later. The good thing for alts here, USDC has perked up quite a bit from the lows relative to where it looked like it was headed. I mean, it looked like it was headed to zero. USDT close to 100 billion in circ. That is massive. So all that is great for alts. Now, if this slows down, that's bad for alts. If some stablecoin bill hits in the United States, it's probably going to be great for USDC and not so great for USDT. Maybe a mixed bag for alts. But right now, this is exactly what you want to see. Just more issuance flowing in. And then at that point, it's only a matter of time until it finds its way into altcoins. The reason I'm talking about BTC today, I had a back and forth with Johnny, good friend. We go after each other, but he's saying since October 20th, which is to me kind of cherry picking a time frame, that ETH has been a relatively potentially better trade. Again, the problem with this mindset is not understanding the risks. To me, the risks of ETH holding it is much greater than Bitcoin. Okay, I think that everybody can agree on that. They might not recognize it, but they can agree on that. And yes, I'm eliminating the staking income here. But again, that's another risk that is kind of hand waved away. But if we want to cherry pick timeframes, sure. Since October 20th, ETH has done well. Since a couple of years ago, ETH is down 40% relative to Bitcoin. This, to me, does not instill confidence in some sort of bullish reversal yet, even with the pre-ETF candle or whatever we had the other day. I mean, a lot of people are still talking about the ETH ETF, which is fine. The first step is getting an approval on a product. The second step is actually having inflows. And oh, by the way, you're going to have ETH-E outflows to deal with on that product as well. So I will recognize the bullish impact potentially, but I think that impact will be severely muted going forward. Anyway, this is still bearish. Sorry. You may have made a higher high here, but I do think this goes much lower over time, especially with all the competition for Ethereum directly through layer 1s, indirectly through layer 2s. It just doesn't look so hot for ETH for a lot of reasons to me. And we're still below the weekly cloud. I mean, there's all sorts of other reasons based on trend not to be bullish ETH BTC. Giving away that move super easily, kind of how it has here, also not a great sign. So I remain bearish on ETH BTC. No surprise there. Along with Ben Cowan, who, by the way, gets a ton of crap. I agree with him. He agrees with me as far as where alts are headed here. It's pre-halving. The Fed hasn't cut yet. It's early, right? Sol against BTC obviously did incredible last year. The edge-to-edge weekly move is completed. So I don't know realistically how much more you can ask for. To me, Sol relative to ETH this cycle, it feels like Sol is this cycle's coin. It certainly has the retail momentum, let's say, behind it. It's cheap enough for where people can actually transact on the network, whereas ETH is quite expensive if you're not using a layer 2. Just another reason why I think the market share for ETH isn't so hot. It's not a great looking picture going forward until something changes in ETH land. I don't even know what that's going to be. Maybe fees come down. But anyway, Sol BTC. I don't know how much more you can expect here on the weekly. The daily still looks okay, right? It's still above the cloud, bullish TK cross still. It does have a potential for a double bottom here. It's just, again, if BTC actually retraces to 35 or 38 or whatever, do you really think your altcoin is going to stand up well against that? I don't think so. I think alts get absolutely trounced against BTC going down 10%. Alts are going to go down 15, 20, 30%. So you just have to be careful. But in the moment, Sol BTC looks okay. Cardano, another favorite. I was talking to a guy today. It's always funny how people bring up Cardano. I don't know where they hear about this stuff, but a lot of that is integer bias, unit bias. On trend, this does not look bullish. It is not in the weekly cloud. Denied at the Kijun, denied at the cloud, denied at the yearly pivot. Cardano BTC as a pair, its time will come down the road, no doubt. No doubt in my mind, unfortunately, that Cardano will pull through this cloud. Zero doubts in my mind. That's probably not going to happen until after July. Okay, so look, if you want to sit in this, eat lows, eat new multi-month lows potentially, go for it. I just think you're going to get a better trade down the line. Even on the daily, below the daily cloud, kind of a hot mess. You could potentially argue for an Adam and Eve here, but the cloud is not on your side yet, right? And I don't want to sound bearish forever on alts because I know what happens. Again, unfortunately, alts do really well after Bitcoin's halving. That's just what we've seen. And unless there's regulatory changes to retail touching altcoins or whatever, right? That's likely to happen again. I just think it's a little early against BTC. AVAX is another one. Is it a double bottom? Is it an Adam and Eve? Is it an eventual bearish move through the cloud? It is a bunch of nothing here right now, kind of at a similar spot historically in early 23 where it began its descent. This was a tiny nothing burger head and shoulders that was enough for whatever reason, right? To just really set this off. So in the moment on the daily, there's no trade here. There's no suggestive strength. You want to wait for what you saw at the very bottom, right? What you love to see and what people are impatient to watch and wait for is months of down, almost a year of down. And then, okay, this is where the heroes are made when they realize, oh, there is a change of character here. By the time it's up here, this is where it gets crowded and, retail is back basically. And it's kind of too late. So I would love to see all these metrics flip bearish to bullish again. Then it just makes the trade much easier. Up here, bunch of nothing. DOT to me looks like a pretty angry looking head and shoulders on the BTC pair. And this would be a new all-time low potentially for DOT BTC. Again, is DOT getting an ETF? No. What does DOT have going for it fundamentally? I don't know. I couldn't tell you. They have a lot of issuance. I know that. It's kind of this follow along layer one trade once alts do better. So again, this is a no go for me based on the chart pattern, based on the cloud, based on fundamentals, based on flows. It's just not there. This is Link BTC on the weekly, and it looks kind of mediocre and okay. It's sideways. It does have, again, into July, maybe Q4, I don't know. Like this might triple bottom out. This might find a midpoint and hold, not above the weekly cloud yet. So it's a bit early on the weekly to expect anything more than you've already gotten. And I think you just got to be patient. But on the daily, unlike most of the other coins, you've got a pretty clear case for an inverted head and shoulders. You've got a bullish TK cross. You almost have price back above the cloud. You have a bullish cloud. So all of this entire picture is setting up for a nice reversal / continuation for Link BTC. But again, in the near term, really depends on, BTC needs to, at the very least, not go to zero in an attempt to go to zero, right? For alts to hold up well. So as good as this looks as a setup, everything's going to be really sensitive to BTC selling off. But definitely one to watch relative to everything else. I'd rather sit in that than Cardano or AVAX or DOT or ETC, right? This is dead money, okay? You might look at this and say, oh, this is oversold. It's a matter of time. Okay, how long are you going to wait, right? I've got some spec alt positions that are at this point under $10,000 max total, okay? So I've got nothing. And this is why, for this exact reason, as great as the USD charts look, against Bitcoin, this is not something you want to buy and hold. Historically, it's only gone down. So definitely be careful when you're, going shopping for things. You have to compare it against Bitcoin. The risks are much lower holding Bitcoin. It's just plain and simple. Doge also looks mega oversold, but it also looks bottomless here. It does not look like there's any sort of bottom forming against BTC at all. Definitely not above the cloud. So, you'll know retail will be back when it's above the cloud, and retail clearly not here at the moment. EOS is another one, basically ready for all-time lows. I love to bring up the older charts because this is what your future will look like if you become a community member, as I'm stumbling and mumbling. As you become a community member in an altcoin, this is your future. Just continuous lows year after year after year after year. We can look at Zcash, same thing. Literally has not been above the weekly cloud since like 2018, if that. Is this oversold? Sure. Does it look bottomless? Absolutely. At the very least, you want to see some sort of pattern here. Double bottom, triple bottom, something, anything, right? There's nothing yet. And I know there has been people every year since I've had this YouTube account telling me this year is the year. Well, turns out it hasn't been. Okay, so that's just another reason to not buy and hold alts. Some of the DeFi stuff, if we're just poking around here, SNX, doesn't look super happy, not quite through the cloud, not above the cloud, not in the cloud. So it's got some time. It's working on a triple bottom here, but there's no urgency. There's nothing that says, oh, this is a great setup. It's just not there, right? Again, July, August, October, like that's when alts are going to do well. You want an alt season? That's when you're going to see it. So you just have to be super patient. Here's comp. Again, no urgency whatsoever. Below the weekly cloud since inception. It's literally never been above the weekly cloud. That's not something I want to buy and hold. You want to be super tactical about something like this, and still doesn't look super happy even at the bottom near all-time lows. Even Filecoin, I know I've been cheerleading a little bit because of the USD edge-to-edge setup. This is an all-time low, basically. Does not look happy down here. It may form some sort of range and figure it out into 2024, but there is no urgency here. Again, nothing is telling you, hey, this is a setup that's tradable. This is a setup that's longable. Nothing. Literally nothing is telling you that. This chart looks abysmal against Bitcoin. Okay. Absolutely horrendous. Now, TIA has gotten a lot of attention. It's been a VC darling. It's been a massive spec play on whatever modular crap garbage they're touting. I don't know, whatever. It's done well since release. Looks a little heavy up here to me. You can clearly see some sort of channel that it's trying to break down from. So again, to me, this is not a buy and hold. If I was in on this from lows, I would be happy with what I got and move on, at least in the moment. And that could easily change. But what you're looking for is things like this. Inverted head and shoulders. Here you had a double bottom. Maybe this retraces all the way down to whatever value this horizontal is. Up here, this doesn't look particularly happy. AAVE, similar to the rest of DeFi, absolutely no urgency. It's been below the weekly cloud since mid-2021. You're not going to miss it. The cloud will let you know. When we start closing in the cloud, yeah, sure. Post Bitcoin halving, that's the best opportunity for this stuff. Rates come down, liquidity goes up, stablecoins are going burr. Not yet. Not now. Not here. This looks ready for a local low retest, right? This does not look happy down here to me at all. RUNE also did quite well, similar to Solana, right? It pulled up quite a bit. Not quite through the weekly cloud. Kind of in no man's land. Not exactly a trade here. Tradable setup, right? But this is, of course, what everyone's hoping for on their alt bag. Their favorite alt position is a 200% move or whatever this was. And that's kind of the insidious nature of altcoin trading. Everyone thinks that they found the gem, they dug for buried treasure, and they hit gold, right? So they think their thing will pop. I will say about this chart, it had a multi-year, you can see it, a multi-year falling wedge, sickle sort of curve pattern there. So that's really what you got to hope for on any alt, is a preceding pattern for multiple years. That's where things tend to happen, as I talk about with a lot of stuff. You saw it on AMC, you saw it on DOGE, you see it on charts like this, where it's just literal despair for years, then it has a chance. Lastly, SUI, some of these charts, as I've you could argue I cherry picked the worst amongst them. I really just looked at the higher caps, but there are some charts out there against Bitcoin that look a hell of a lot better than most of this stuff, right? SUI has held above the daily cloud since earlier in the year, continues to make highs. It looks a little maybe rising wedgy, but certainly doesn't look nearly as bearish as everything else does. So if you're trading alts, do yourself a favor, throw on the BTC pair and then make a decision. Odds are it's not going to look so hot. That's all I have for this one. Like, dislike, comment, share, subscribe, and happy trading.